Hey, just a very quick one before you watch this video. Literally nobody would sponsor this video because it's an Android video in the middle of like Apple iPhone season. So yeah, if you are watching this video, first of all, thank you very much. And secondly, maybe just head down below, click the like button and comment just to try and help this video break through the sea of Apple videos that are obviously doing the rounds this month. So yeah, just thank you very much.
A lifelong iPhone user switches, now this time to the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 5.
Your blades are sharpened with precision.
Fully switched to the S24 Ultra.
Favorite point of view.
They've got the closest design here to tempt someone away from an iPhone.
I know you're waiting in the distance.
And as someone who is considering switching from Apple to an Android phone, this is a really solid option. The big question after 6 months of switching to the S24 Ultra is what's next?
Exactly how this ends. I let you cut me open just to watch me blink.
I'm actually learning to love the Android ecosystem and all it can do. iPhone, you're just a bit boring.
Don't know why I'm hoping for what I won't receive.
I think I'm going to switch back to the S24 Ultra for maybe a little while longer.
The emptiness machine. The emptiness machine.
You've probably noticed there is an absolute truckload of videos that surround switching from iPhone to Android or Android to iPhone. And yeah, I know I made this same video last year, but I really don't think I did the topic justice. Now, as someone who has spent the last 4 years testing and reviewing and switching back and forth between iPhone and Android, I feel like I'm in a pretty unique position where I have been using now both of them for long enough to have a somewhat fairly balanced opinion on both. So firstly, just put the pitchforks down. I know you're a passionate bunch of people, whichever side of the fence you choose to be on. Now, I want to show you the actual benefits and some of the drawbacks I've noticed of switching from iPhone to Android, and some of the more obvious ones than others. And then ultimately, answer the question that everyone always asks me down in the comments, which is better? iPhone and iOS or Android? So starting with the obvious benefits of switching, there are two big ones. Now, firstly, the hardware. Now, those of you who have been using the same old iPhone for the past however many years, and even those who upgrade every year to an iPhone that still looks the same as the one from like 5 years ago, I'm sure will appreciate that over on Android, you get way more variety to choose from, as well as just way more advanced technology. You've got incredible slab phones like the S24 series, but then there are also flips and folds and small phones and big phones, budget phones, and even trifold phones we've seen recently. Now, some have actual real super fast charging speeds, screens with better anti-reflective technology. You can get faster 120 Hz refresh rates that make your phones feel smoother and faster across even the budget range of phones, something that Apple's refused to do on their non-pro phones for years, even when they cost like 4 times the amount of even like a budget Android phone. Now, over on the software side, you are obviously switching out to iOS for Android, which has its benefits. It also has some drawbacks, which I'll get to. But what I do notice is that my Android devices feel significantly faster than even the latest iPhone does. And that is for a few reasons. Now, whenever you need to unlock your phone, either when picking it up or just doing something on a phone that requires you to re-authenticate, even though I thought that fingerprint is kind of taking a step back from where we were with how accurate and cool and fast Face ID was, it's actually faster using the fingerprint reader. Now on iPhone, even just waiting for that Face ID animation to come up and then waiting it for it to disappear just feels really slow to me now. Next, for the vast majority of the time when messaging or writing emails, pasting something on Android takes like one tap directly from your keyboard and you're done. Whereas on iPhone, it usually requires multiple taps and sometimes even having to accept like security prompts to allow you to paste between apps. You can also unlock developer settings on basically any Android phone, which give you access to a huge number of additional settings, one of which is to increase or completely remove the speed of the UI animations, which again, just makes this phone, any Android phone, feel and work way snappier than any iPhone ever does. In other areas, I found my Wi-Fi is far better, far faster at connecting to Wi-Fi when I get home or disconnecting when I'm out of Wi-Fi range. Whereas my iPhone will always hold on to Wi-Fi connections, even if it's pretty much non-existent anymore. And it takes significantly longer to realize that my home Wi-Fi is available to connect to when I get home. Also, just a minor note here, not really, kind of a major annoyance really. When I get into my car and I'm wearing my smart Meta Ray-Ban glasses, CarPlay will kick in, but then it will play the audio via my glasses every time.
Come out there. So there.
And so every time, I have to grab my phone and then change the audio source to play via CarPlay instead. Whereas on Android, like any Android phone, that just isn't a problem at all. And actually, to go a step further, by configuring different apps to use different audio sources. Now, the best example for this is when you're using a Bluetooth speaker to play music when you've got friends over for a barbecue or a party or something, but you don't want other app sounds like your messages or phone calls or anything else to go through that same speaker. You can do that on an Android phone. And Android can also keep tabs of audio from multiple apps at once. So when I'm at the gym listening to music and I want to watch a quick YouTube video, and I can then just get back to quickly playing the music that I was listening to before. Whereas on iOS and iPhone, I have to literally go and find that music app and then hit play again, because apparently it's totally forgotten what I was listening to 10 seconds ago. Android, I found, is also more consistent with its back gestures. Now, in some apps I use swiping back on an iPhone, it can go back, or it can open a window, like a side window, sometimes even deletes an email. And for those of you with kids, I have a Pixel tablet for my son, which is awesome, by the way. And it's really, really more awesome because of the parental controls app with a dedicated app where I can add more time instantly. You try and add time to an iPad, and all I can say is just good luck trying to find it within the settings of this phone somewhere. But the wonderful thing about Android is that since it's a more open platform with less restrictions, then if you want your Android phone to do something, then it's quite likely there is a downloadable app that will let you do just that. Now, we've seen Apple lose yet another case, this time against Epic Games, with it being a monopoly with its App Store. But at least in the EU now, they've stepped in and forced Apple's hand at allowing third-party app stores onto their devices, finally. And so, for those lucky people in the EU, unfortunately not in the UK, UK left the EU, you can now get Epic Game Store on your iPhone, but nowhere outside of the EU can you do that. Unless you have an Android phone, since with an Android phone, you are free to install whatever apps you wish. Now, yeah, of course, this does come with some added risk. You could download something that then fries your phone and gets it infected with viruses and things, but unless you are really trying and really delving into the depths of installing dodgy apps on your phone, it's pretty unlikely. But outside of all the major hardware and software differences, Android also benefits from better pricing, and again, in a couple of different ways. Now, firstly, the phones themselves come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, colors, budgets, with some great phones having flagship features, but at a fraction of the cost of actual flagship phones. And discounts. Never have I bought anything from Apple where they have then offered me additional discounts to incentivize me to buy extras with my phone. A watch, earbuds, cases, straps, full-on tablets. You buy anything from Samsung and you can be sure to find either a discount or, in some cases, a free product just for buying a new phone. But the discounts don't stop there either, because one thing that I'm pretty much sure every iPhone owner will be aware of this is the Apple tax, which, rightly or wrongly, is charged to iPhone users for the safety and security that Apple Store provides. Now, it is far cheaper to sign up for apps on an Android phone than on an iPhone, because there is no App Store Apple tax to pay. There is still some premiums to pay for the Google Play Store, I will give it that, but they are incredibly more on an iPhone. And taking it a step further, buying from a desktop browser will sometimes be even cheaper again, and by far it's going to be the cheapest way to buy or subscribe to your favorite apps, because you're not having to then cover the extra fees that both the Google Play Store and Apple App Stores take for sales in their respective app stores. Now, I know, blue bubbles versus green bubbles, it's a whole thing out there. And if you are in the US, it's even more of a thing. But outside of the US, and maybe now with the new RCS updates, those of us who have moved from an iPhone to an Android phone just move our chats onto other platforms. Like almost all of my chats are now in places like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. And I use an app called Beeper on my Android phone, which is actually way better on an Android phone than iOS, which is kind of a rare thing sometimes, which brings together all of my chats into one place. Super, super love this app. Use it all the time, even with its like little quirks to kind of get used to. And like I mentioned, and now iOS 18 is out, which now finally includes support for RCS messaging. This whole like iMessage thing is becoming less and less of a thing for many people, although good old Tim Apple still giving Android users the green bubbles. Thanks, Uncle Tim, but but you do get higher quality images still, group chats, typing indicators, read receipts, reactions again, which just definitely helps blur the line between iMessage and, well, everything else. But where there are positives, there are also some drawbacks which I have come across. Now the first one is getting better, but there are still far less available options to you as an Android user when it comes to buying accessories. Now outside of the official accessories, it is quite common to see accessory makers exclusively focus on Apple products, and even in some cases where they do offer Android models, they are significantly limited and usually reserved for only the most high-excelling like flagship models like the Samsung S Ultra or Pixel Pro XL series. Now, one of the benefits the Android ecosystem gives us is choice. You can mix a Samsung phone with a Pixel Watch and Sony earbuds and benefit from pretty much all of the features, and broadly speaking, it is great to have such a wide range of choices. But what it can introduce, in some cases at least, is this fairly like fragmented ecosystem. Take the latest and greatest Google Gemini, for example. Really cool, really cool new AI voice assistant, yet it's not available on Android Auto, which is arguably the most like commonplace you want to use voice. Instead, you have to use the old Google Assistant. I then really love the latest OnePlus watch, but it's had its own health app that then logged all of your data. And so you then have to sync your health data to Samsung or Google Health, because I want all of my health data in one place, not spread across these like 5 different apps. And this is something Apple does beautifully. It doesn't matter if you're using a fancy like 8 sleep mattress to track your sleep, or an Oura Ring or a Whoop. All of the data goes back to one place, which is Apple's health app. Now, this actually did cause me some like real issues on Android, because my health insurance here in the UK lets me reduce my premiums each year, as well as gives me access to discounts and free stuff like free cinema tickets, coffees, discounts on Samsung and Garmin and Nike and all sorts of stuff. But only if I log 30 minutes worth of exercise 5 times a week. And so if that data isn't getting written back to one of their like main supported health apps, like Apple Health, or on Google side of things, Google Health or Samsung Health, I don't get any points. It just doesn't register. And actually, speaking of which, this video isn't sponsored, but if you are from the UK and are interested in £100 cashback, a ton of discounts on all kind of sorts of tech that I just mentioned, then click on the link down below. Check out Vitality Health Insurance. It has been like well worth it for me and paid for itself every year so far with just all the benefits we get from it. And then aside from these drawbacks, there are some minor frustrations that I have with Android, like you can't take screenshots in certain apps like banking apps because, well, security, but there doesn't seem to be any way to allow this at all, which for me just really sucks when I want to screenshot my bank transactions and send it to my accountant. And actually, the dynamic island, however much of a pointless update it will seem to be originally, is really useful to show me how far away my Uber driver is or how long I've got left on my car parking without having to remember to go in and check the app constantly and set reminders. But those drawbacks aside, Android phones, the software experience, the hardware, everything else is pretty freaking great. And I could easily reel off a similar list of frustrations with the iPhone and iOS as well. Now, the biggest question I see asked by everyone in the comments section, I get people direct messaging me after I've made my video reviews, and it's the biggest topic I see that people keep posting about on platforms like Twitter and YouTube and Threads, is all about Apple versus Samsung, Apple versus Pixel, or iOS versus Android, because, well, it always draws a lot of attention. And so the answer to which is better, iPhone, or Samsung, or Android, or insert Android phone here, is that there is no answer. Now look, if you are bored of your iPhone, absolutely give any Android phone a try. You might love it, you might hate it, but as someone who has actually used an iPhone for years and years now, I genuinely enjoy exploring any Android phone and everything Android has to offer with what I've mentioned in this video, because it's different, it's fun, it's new. You know, you can do things like this with your phones now on Android. You can't do that on an iPhone. And because there is a new Android phone launching practically every week of the year, it's an absolute blast to keep switching between them and testing them out and having fun. And that's the thing, these are fun. Now, equally, I know just as many Android users who have, again, switched over to an iPhone and iOS because of the exact same reasons. Android's boring, I've been using it for a decade, because again, the iPhone, to them, is different. It's fun, it's new, but it's still a phone. It still runs the same flipping apps, still takes exceptional photos and videos, and will probably still need to be charged once a day. Any phone, any ecosystem, any device you're going to use will still have its own nuances. But whether you are an iPhone user, Samsung user, or Pixel, or Xiaomi, whatever phone you are using, maybe, just maybe, stop worrying about what phone everyone else is using. Just use whatever phone you enjoy using.